I made the cornbread from scratch. I even bought the good butter, the kind that costs twice as much and comes wrapped in foil instead of a cardboard box. I set the table with the plates my grandmother left me, the white ones with the small blue flowers around the rim, and I lit 2 candles in the middle because I read somewhere that candlelight makes any space feel like home. It was the first home I had ever owned. I wanted it to feel like one. I had signed the papers on a Tuesday in October, 31 years old, standing in a title company office with a pen that kept skipping, signing my name over and over on pages I barely understood, and when the agent slid the keys across the table, I started crying before I could stop myself. Not sad crying, the other kind. The kind that surprises you because you didn't realize how long you had been holding your breath. I called my mother from the parking lot. She said, "Oh, that's nice, honey." Then she asked if I had talked to my sister about Thanksgiving, because my sister wanted to do it at her place this year, and someone needed to call and tell my aunt. I called my brother next. He said, "Congrats." And then immediately, "So does that mean you have a guest room now?" I called my best friend after that. She screamed so loud into the phone that the woman walking past me on the sidewalk turned around to stare. She said, "We are celebrating this. Name the date." I will be there. I named the date. A Saturday, 3 weeks after closing. Once I had enough furniture to feel like a real person lived there, and not just someone camping inside their own life. I sent a group text to my mother, my brother, my older sister, my aunt, and 2 cousins I was close to. Just a housewarming. Nothing formal. Come see the place. Eat some food. Let me show you the thing I built by myself. My friend replied within 30 seconds. Can't wait. I'm bringing wine and that dip you like. Everyone else left the message unread. I told myself that was fine. People are busy. 3 weeks is a lot of notice, but it's also not that much notice. I told myself a lot of things during those 3 weeks, the way you do when you already know the answer but you're not ready to stop hoping you're wrong. The Saturday came. I woke up early and mopped the floors. I arranged things on the kitchen counter that didn't need arranging. I put on the playlist I'd been building for weeks, soft and warm, the kind of music that makes a room feel lived in. I made the cornbread. I made a pot of my grandmother's soup from memory, the one I only half knew how to make and had to guess at the last 3 ingredients. It came out close enough that it made my chest hurt in a way that felt like love and grief at the same time. My friend arrived at noon with 2 bottles of wine and the dip and a small succulent in a terracotta pot with a little card tied to it that said, "For your first windowsill." We sat on my floor because I only had 1 couch, and we ate cornbread and soup, and she walked through every single room with me and asked questions about what I was going to do with each one, and actually listened to the answers. At 2 o'clock, I checked my phone. My mother had texted at noon. "So sorry, sweetheart. Not feeling great today. We'll come see it soon." My brother texted at 1:30. "Hey, got caught up with something? Rain check?" My sister never texted at all. My aunt sent a voice message that was 47 seconds long, and I can summarize it in 6 words. Something came up, but love you. One of the cousins said she was out of town. The other one said she'd forgotten and had already made plans. My friend watched me read through all of it. She didn't say anything at first. She just poured me more wine and sat back down on the floor next to me, and we stayed like that for a while. The candles burning between us and the soup still warm on the stove, and the blue flower plates that nobody else was going to eat off of that day. "You okay?" she finally asked. I looked around the room. My room. My walls. The window I had stood in front of for 20 minutes at the open house because the light came through it in a way that felt like a sign. Though I couldn't have told you a sign of what the windowsill where the succulent now sat in its little terracotta pot. "I think I've been the one showing up for a really long time," I said. "And I don't think any of them have noticed that it's been going the same direction." She nodded. She didn't argue with me or tell me I was being dramatic. She just nodded. And that quiet agreement landed somewhere in me like a key turning. I had driven 4 hours to be in the front row when my brother graduated from his program. I had taken 3 days off work and paid for my own hotel because there wasn't room at my mother's house. There was always room at my mother's house, but somehow never quite enough for me. I had organized my sister's baby shower down to the ribbon colors on the chairs. I had been the one to sit with my aunt in the hospital waiting room for 6 hours when her husband had his procedure, even though I had a shift the next morning and had to leave at 4 a.m. to make it back in time. I had been present for every graduation, every move, every crisis, every holiday that someone else decided on and expected me to simply appear at. Reliable as a piece of furniture. I had never once asked for anything back. I had just assumed, the way you assume when you love people, that the care would eventually find its way home. It hadn't. And sitting on my floor in my first home with my cornbread and my grandmother's almost right soup, I finally let myself know that I didn't cry. I was a little surprised by that. I think some part of me had expected grief to come rushing in, but what came instead was quieter, more like clarity, the feeling of a fog lifting, not a storm arriving. My friend stayed until evening. When she left, she hugged me for a long time at the door and she said, "You deserve people who show up. Not they'll come around or give it time or I'm sure they meant well. Just that. You deserve people who show up." I stood in the doorway after her car pulled away and I held on to that sentence like it was something physical. The weeks after that, I didn't say anything to my family. I didn't bring up the housewarming. I didn't send a follow-up text asking when they were coming to see the place. I just went quiet in the way that only becomes noticeable after it's already been going on for a while. And I watched to see how long it would take any of them to notice. My mother called twice in November, both times to relay logistics about Thanksgiving, who was bringing what. Whether I was still making the green bean dish everyone liked. Could I pick up ice on the way? Neither call included a single question about the house, or how I was doing, or how the new job had been going since I'd transferred to the clinic closer to home. I answered what she asked. I said yes to the green beans and the ice. I didn't volunteer anything. My brother texted me a meme. My sister asked if I could take the kids for a weekend in December because she and her husband needed a trip. I sat with each of these interactions and I noticed how they made me feel. And I tried to be honest with myself about what I was noticing. Not dramatic, not catastrophizing, just honest. And what I noticed was that every exchange moved in one direction. What do you have that we need? When can you provide it? Thank you. See you next time we need something. I was not the family. I was the service. I was still working through what to do with that when the message came. It was a Sunday morning, 5 weeks after the housewarming, and I was sitting at my kitchen table with coffee when my phone buzzed with a text from my mother. Not a call, a text. And it wasn't just to me, it was a group message to everyone in the family thread. Big news! We're doing a special Christmas celebration this year for Grandma's 80th. She said she wants one big family gathering, everyone together. We're thinking we'll host it at Nora's since she has the new house. Should be 20 to 25 people. Saturday the 20th. Nora, can you confirm? I read it twice. I read it a third time, slowly, the way you reread something when you're trying to find the version of it that makes sense. She had not asked me before sending this. She had announced it to the entire family as a plan. A plan that involved my house, my time, my space, a home that exactly 0 members of this family had ever stepped foot in without a single conversation with me beforehand. Not even a heads up. Just Nora, can you confirm at the end, like a footnote, like confirming was the only reasonable response. And for a moment, I felt the familiar pull, the one I had been feeling my whole life. The pull that said, just say yes. It's easier. It's family. You don't want to cause a problem. I had said yes to that pull so many times that yes had basically become my default factory setting. I put my phone face down on the table. I got up and stood at my kitchen window for a while, looking out at the backyard, which was still mostly dirt and dead grass because I hadn't had the time or money to do anything with it yet, but I had big plans for it in the spring. I thought about the cornbread. I thought about the blue flower plates, I thought about my grandmother's soup and the candles burning and my friends sitting on my floor saying, "You deserve people who show up." I thought about the fact that not a single person in that group thread had come to see this house. That my mother was, at this exact moment, volunteering it to 25 people without asking me first. That somewhere in her understanding of our relationship, she had concluded that this was simply fine. That I would simply confirm. I picked up my phone and I typed, "Hi, Mom. I won't be able to host this year. Hope you find a great space for Grandma's celebration." I pressed send before the pull could talk me out of it. The response came in 4 minutes. "What do you mean? We already told Grandma." Then my sister. "Nora, what is going on with you lately?" Then my brother. "Seriously, it's Grandma's 80th? Then my aunt. "I don't understand. Don't you want to be part of this?" I watched the messages arrive like a tide coming in, each one phrased just differently enough to make me the problem. Not "we should have asked you first." Not "we're sorry, we assumed too much." Just a series of variations on the theme of "why are you doing this to us?" I typed, "I love Grandma, and I hope the celebration is wonderful. I'm just not able to host." And then I put my phone in a drawer and went for a walk. Here is what I want to tell you about what happened next, because I think this is the part that matters most. It would be easy to tell this like a revenge story, the satisfying kind where the person who was wronged pulls one dramatic lever and watches everything fall into place and walks away with the last word. But that's not what this was. What this actually was much slower and quieter and more uncomfortable than that. Over the next 2 weeks, my phone was busy. My mother called, and we had the kind of conversation that felt like being slowly talked out of everything you know to be true. She used the word selfish once, softly, the way people do when they want to say something cruel but also want to be able to say later that they were just worried about you. She said she didn't understand what had gotten into me. She said family was family. I said, "I know. That's why I showed up for 4 hours at Marcus's graduation. That's why I organized Claire's shower. That's why I sat with Aunt Diane in the hospital until 4 in the morning. I know family is family, Mom. I've been acting on that for a long time." There was a silence on the line. "You never said you felt that way," she finally said. "I didn't think I needed to," I said. "I thought you could see me." That conversation ended without resolution, the way most honest conversations do. She didn't apologize. I didn't ask her to, but I had said the true thing out loud, and once you say the true thing out loud, it becomes very hard to unknow it. My sister came over unannounced one evening, which she had never done before, and I think she believed that seeing the house for the first time would function as some kind of peace offering. Like by showing up now, she was covering the absence of before. She walked through the rooms and said things like, "Oh, this is cute and I like what you did here," and I watched her see, for the first time, the place I had built. I kept my voice even. I offered her coffee. I did not say what I was thinking, which was, "You could have seen this 2 months ago. I asked you to come. I made cornbread." Before she left, she tried once more about the Christmas party. She said Grandma was really hoping for the house with the big living room. She said she thought it would be special. I said, "I hope you find something perfect for her." She looked at me for a moment like she was trying to find the lever to pull, the combination to enter, the version of me that would fold. I looked back at her with something I had been building slowly, quietly, over the past months. A kind of settled calm. Not coldness. Not anger. Just the solid knowledge of what I was and was not willing to do. She left without pushing further. My brother never came to the house. He did, however, send a text in early December asking if I could Venmo him $200 because he was short on rent. I looked at that text for a long time. Then I typed back, "I'm not able to right now. Hope it works out." And I put my phone down and noticed that my hands weren't shaking and my stomach wasn't in knots the way they always used to be when I said no to someone in my family. I just felt quiet, clear. The Christmas celebration happened at my aunt's house, 22 people, from what I heard. I was not there. I spent that Saturday with my friend instead. We drove out to this nursery about 40 minutes outside the city because I had decided I wanted fruit trees in the backyard, 2 of them, a peach and a plum, and I needed someone to help me load them into the car. We spent 2 hours walking through rows of things growing, asking a very patient employee too many questions. And I bought the trees and also a flat of herbs I had no room for, but couldn't leave behind. We stopped at a diner on the way back and sat in a booth by the window and split a piece of pie that was better than anything I had tasted in a long time. And my friend told me about a trip she was planning, and I told her about the spring garden I was designing in my head. And neither of us checked our phones for a while. On the drive home, with the fruit trees in the back of the car and the herbs on the seat beside me and the late afternoon light coming low through the windows, I thought about my grandmother at her 80-year celebration, surrounded by the people who were there. I thought about the blue flower plate still in my cabinet. I thought about the question I had sat with that night on my floor almost 3 months ago. How many more years? And the answer I had finally arrived at was none, not out of bitterness. I want to be very clear about that, because I think it's the thing that people misunderstand when they hear a story like this. They think the ending is about punishment, about making someone pay, about winning. But that is not what I was doing. I was not punishing my family. I was not trying to make them suffer. I was simply, finally, clearly, removing myself from an arrangement that had been draining me for years, without anyone noticing or caring enough to ask. I was not leaving in anger. I was leaving because I finally understood that staying in the same posture forever and hoping something would change was not love. It was just exhaustion wearing love's face. January was the quietest month I can remember in a long time. I planted the fruit trees on a Sunday when the ground was cold but workable, and I stood back and looked at them for a while after. 2 small, bare-branched things in the dirt, and I thought about how they wouldn't bloom until spring and wouldn't give fruit for a year or 2 yet. And I didn't mind that. I was learning to be patient with things that needed time. I started cooking more. Real cooking. The kind that takes an afternoon and makes the whole house smell like something. I had never done that much before, because I was always either at someone else's house or bracing for the next thing that needed doing, and now I had space in my schedule that I hadn't had before, the space that used to be filled with other people's emergencies, other people's needs, other people's celebrations that I poured myself into while quietly starving for one person to pour back. I took a weekend trip by myself in February, something I had never done before. Just a cabin a few hours north, with a fireplace and a stack of books I had been meaning to read for 2 years. I told no one where I was going, except my friend, who I texted with the address in case of emergency. I drove there on a Friday evening and I sat by the fire and I read until my eyes got heavy, and I slept for 9 hours and woke up to snow on the ground outside the window. I cried a little that morning, sitting with my coffee and looking at the snow. Not the sad kind, the other kind. My mother called in late February, and this time the conversation was different. She didn't ask me for anything. She said she had been thinking. She said she thought she might not have been as present for the housewarming as she should have been. She didn't say, "I'm sorry," in so many words, and I didn't need her to. What she said was, "I'd like to come see your place, if that's still okay." I said yes. She came on a Saturday morning and I made coffee, and we sat in the living room with the light coming through the window, and she picked up one of the blue flower plates off the shelf where I had arranged them decoratively instead of hiding them in a cabinet, and she ran her thumb over the rim and said, "These were my mother's." "I know," I said. She put it down carefully and looked around the room, the same way my sister had, but differently. She wasn't appraising it or measuring it against what she'd imagined. She was just looking, seeing. "You did this all by yourself," she said. "I did?" I said. She nodded, and there was something in the nod that felt like a beginning of something, though I didn't know yet what it was the beginning of. I didn't rush it. I didn't need to. I had learned, finally, how to sit still inside a moment without trying to fix it into something it wasn't ready to be yet. I don't know how to wrap this up in a bow, because it doesn't end that way. What I can tell you is what my life looks like now, 7 months after the housewarming that nobody came to. And I think that is more honest than a tidy conclusion. My friend comes over almost every other week. We cook together sometimes, or we sit on the couch and watch something, or we walk through the neighborhood in the evening while it's still light. She has seen every version of my home, the bare stage of moving in version, the works in progress version, the version that is slowly, room by room, becoming exactly what I want it to be. My mother and I are finding something. It is slow and it is imperfect, and there are still moments when I feel the old pull, the one that says, just absorb it, just make it easier, but I don't absorb it anymore. I name it, quietly, to myself, and then I decide deliberately what I actually want to give. That is different from just giving everything by default. That difference is everything. My brother and I talk less. That is okay. My sister and I are somewhere in the middle, not close, not distant, figuring out what we actually are to each other, outside the role I used to play. The fruit trees are starting to leaf out. They're not going to give me anything yet. It's too soon. But they're alive, and they're growing, and every time I look at them from the kitchen window, I feel something that I can only describe as proof. Proof that things you put in the ground when it's cold will still find their way toward light. That you can build something from nothing in soil that doesn't look promising yet. That you can start. Some mornings I make coffee, and I stand at the window that first made me cry at the open house, of the one with the light, and I think about the version of me who signed those papers with the skipping pen and called her mother from the parking lot and got "that's nice, honey" in return. I think about how long she had been hoping that doing everything right would eventually result in being seen. I don't resent her for hoping, but I'm glad I finally stopped waiting for someone else to hand me the answer. This is my house. This is my window. This is my light. I built this by myself, and there is not a single room in it that I am ashamed of. If you are carrying people who are not carrying you back, I want you to hear what someone once said to me on a floor with 2 glasses of wine and a dying candle, because I have turned it over in my hands almost every day since. You deserve people who show up, not people who mean well, not people who are trying in their own way, people who actually show up. You are allowed to take that seriously. You are allowed to arrange your life around it. You don't have to make the cornbread for people who don't come.